What's up, pre-Chiro students? It's Dr. Ben again with another relevant conversation with a recent graduate, Dr. Kayla. Dr. Kayla, can you just kind of get us started by introducing yourself and reflecting back on where you were at in life when you decided to become a chiropractor, like what was going on at that moment?
Yeah. Okay. So I am Dr. Kayla Dozier as of 2 days ago. I just graduated from Logan University. I don't have some like crazy story on like how I decided to be a chiropractor. But looking back, like now that I am where I'm at, like I know I didn't really choose chiropractic, like chiropractic chose me. I've always grown up like in sports. I played basketball since I was 5. So always just been around like health in that sense. I tore my ACL twice. So I have a heavy history with physical therapy. And I know a lot of people's stories like, oh, I wanted to go to physical therapy school. And then like somehow chiropractic just like snatches you
Mm-hmm.
from that. So I had shadowed, some chiropractors while I was in undergrad. My undergrad was in athletic training. And one of the guys that I shadowed, he'd always be like, "Oh, you'd be a great chiropractor. You'd be a great chiropractor." And I was like, I'm going to physical therapy school. And then honestly, like it just kind of happened. Um, it's kind of a long, crazy story, but I'll just say that like it just kind of happened, and the way that I got to Logan is just like kind of crazy. Like I saw it on my Instagram feed, and I was like, "Oh, I know that girl. I went to undergrad with her, and she had went on a visit." And I literally just like applied right there. The next day they called me, and before I knew it, like I was getting ready to pack up and go to St. Louis. So just
Mm-hmm.
kind of wild the way
When
that
I
it.
hear you say that, it sounds like you were ready to go and they were ready to accept you right away. Can you talk about like kind of that admissions process? It sounds like it was rather easy and smooth. And I like to say that it's easy to get into chiropractic school, but it's really hard to really be happy at the end of the program. And it seems like you have a lot of energy right now. Like, what was the student experience like, and what was that admissions process like?
Yeah, so before I talk about the chiropractic emissions process, I want to go back because I think that this is like so important in my story is that, when I graduated from undergrad, everyone was like, oh, you played basketball in college, you have good grades, like you were super involved, getting into PT school is going to be like super easy. And that was not my experience. So the first time that I applied to like 6 or 7 different schools. It was like a lot of money. Ended up I didn't get accepted into any schools, which was like I was like, dang, like it was very humbling at the time. And so I went back, like I took a bunch of classes, I retook some stuff, and I applied again, and they lost my transcript. So I was like going in and looking up to see what my GPA was to see if like it was refreshed like from the new classes that I had taken, and it was like the same GPA. So I had to call a bunch of people, and they were like, "Oh, you need to call your school." But long story short, they lost the transcript, and they were like, "This never happens." In thousands of schools for how many years they've been doing this, this never happens. And so for me, that was like a sign, like, okay, girl, they lost your transcript, which never happens. And
Mm-hmm.
so by that time, like all the schools were already picking their, candidates that they wanted to interview. And so I was like, okay, do I really want to like apply for a third time, spend all this money? And now, looking back from what I know now, is that anytime there's like a lot of resistance like that, or like it's not smooth, it's not easy, not saying life's going to be easy, but anytime like something like that happens, that is just, to me, feels like God's hand is not in it. And therefore, like you're trying to push something to happen that's not supposed to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Um, at the time, I didn't know that, but at the time, in my natural mind, I was like, I'm not applying again. Like this is just too much. And so I was
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, do I want to go to speech therapy, occupational therapy, chiropractic? And my god sister at the time, she was still in undergrad, and she was like talking about chiropractic school, and I'm like, well, maybe I've been around chiropractic, like maybe I should like look into that a little bit more. And the process was super easy. So I did like the little application online, um, and they called me like literally. I was here in this house. This is my parents' house. My mom was like, Kayla, like someone's on the phone for you from Logan. And I'm like, Logan? I'm like, oh, that's the application I did yesterday. Yeah, he called me, asked me some questions. And then he was like, well, just write this essay, go online, like, complete the application like fully. And then we should have like, the answer for you in the next couple of days. And so like I literally wrote the essay in like 2 days, sent it in, And he was like, well, you can actually start in January if you want to. At the time, I think it was like maybe November. And I was like, all right, let's do it.
Yeah, and let's just keep going with that pre-Cairo story. You were told by one of your athletic training teachers or an athletic trainer, "Hey, why don't you consider chiropractic?" What was that inner resistance to chiropractic? Maybe subconsciously that you weren't even aware of at the time, but why was it that chiropractic kept getting offered to you and you were not really like reaching for it? Because my recognition is that it's not represented very well, and so it's not really anyone's primary choice. It's always a fallback option. And so I'm just curious if you can get into the psychology of, um, just that whole situation there.
Yeah. So, my experience was that I was actually doing a rotation with a chiropractor while I was in athletic training school. That was one of the things that they offered was as a place that you could go. And he, as a chiropractor, told me that I'd be a good chiropractor. But I think that I had already had in my mind, like set on like, oh, I'm going to physical therapy school. I'm gonna work with, like MS, Parkinson's, like stroke patients. Like I was really interested in like neurology. Chiropractic is literally like neurology. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think just because it that was what I was more familiar with. Like I said before, I tore my ACL twice playing basketball, and so like, physical therapists really helped me, and I had a good experience on like, what physical therapy was. So I think, like you're saying, like that's just what I was exposed to, and as we get more young people, especially people in school, like more exposed to chiropractic and like what you can do with it, and it's not just this. Um, it's not just for sports. It's not just for, back pain, whatever. I think that as you spread that message more and it becomes more mainstream, then you'll get more people that will be like, oh, okay, let me think about chiropractic first. How many people do we go to school with and they're like, oh, I went to a chiropractor and I loved it so much that I was like, I want to do this. So that's
Mm-hmm.
how we really like get more eyes on the profession. But I think for me, it was just, I had already had in my mind that I was, going to go to physical therapy school. And honestly, as an athlete, I had never really seen a chiropractor in the past. My mom brought me to a chiropractor when I was younger because I had scoliosis, and he told me like, oh, just stop playing basketball. But like I don't remember like ever seeing, the chiropractor. So I think that for me it's just like I hadn't seen it as much growing up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We could take this conversation a couple directions right now. We could either get into your chiropractic student experience if that's where you want to go right now, or we can come back to that after talking about what you just got back from, which was a trip to Haiti. Um, where do you want to start? Do you want to start? Which direction do you want to go with it right now? Where are you feeling like?
Um we can go, Haiti's fresh, so we can go either way. I think that part of chiropractic is like even more important than like what school you pick and that stuff. This is really what chiropractic is about stuff like this, like going to Haiti. So we can go there, and I'm sure that like school is gonna, tie back into it for sure.
No doubt, no doubt. So going to a third world country like Haiti that has been devastated by so many natural disasters and so much lack of resource, to show up there as a chiropractor, what was the experience like? What was it like to go on a service trip as a chiropractor?
Yeah, it's a life changing experience. You kind of go there to heal the people, and your intentions are that you want to lay hands on them and just give them that touch, that interaction. But really what happens is that you get healed yourself while you go there. This is actually my second time going. I go with Cairo missions with Dr. Peter Morgan. um, I think it just gives you a bigger perspective on like what we have the capability to do, because there's people like even before they get on the table, like drawing the crowds around us and exchanging smiles with people and hugs, and there's a language barrier, but at the end of the day, like that physical touch and love is like, and kindness is just a universal language. And so I think it, as tiring as it is, we're out there every day, it's hot as I don't know what. But it recharges you and gets you, like when you come back to the States, it kind of like lights something inside of you.
Hmm.
and just I don't know, it just like it just changes your life. It really does. I mean, I can't imagine ever not going back. Like I feel like it's just going to be something that I continue to do um, for the rest of my life,
Mhm,
honestly.
mhm. And touching on just some of the things that you witnessed or that you experienced and observed, most people in the States or prospective students think that if you go become a chiropractor, you're just going to crack backs and you're just going to be fixing neck and back pain, and maybe you'll work with a sports team. But can you touch on some of the non-musculoskeletal things that you observed or saw just providing care while you were there in Haiti?
Yeah, so they've had some crazy stories in the past about like stuff that has happened while these different chiropractors go out there. I mean, and it's the spectrum is just so large. And people, you know, when I first got to school, everyone was like, "Oh, chiropractic can treat everything," and I'm like, "Well, how is that possible?" But then, the more you learn about like neurology and like your nervous system literally controls everything, that's why you see these crazy things that happen. So, um, most of it, honestly, a lot of it is aches and pains because they're very hardworking people. You know, they walk around barefoot, which is good, but they're carrying stuff in their head, and so like a lot of it is a lot of musculoskeletal stuff. But we see a lot of emotional trauma too. You know, they went through this devastating like hurt what was earthquake a long time ago, and they have all these emotional this emotional trauma that they carry around, and so we have had like emotional releases on the table. um, I always see a lot of pregnant moms when I go out there, and they just always say like it just feels different, you know. Well, they try to the best that they can to the interpreters, but I mean headaches. I know they've had like stuff with hearing. I haven't seen that yet, but hearing changing. Um, there's just the spectrum is just so large, and a lot of it we don't get to see because you know we may give these adjustments and like you know you can give an adjustment 5 times and then we could come back to America and the miracle could happen afterwards. So we don't see a lot of the stuff that actually transpires after we leave, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't mean to take it here, but it's relevant to the times. Emotional trauma is something we're dealing with in our communities quite a bit. And I think it's important to acknowledge how chiropractic could really shift the consciousness or just help people heal from emotional trauma, generational trauma. What's it mean for you to have grown up in the community you grown up and then go become a chiropractor, knowing that there's so few chiropractors serving your community? And what does it feel like for you to leave chiropractic school with the skill set and the awareness and the consciousness that you have, and what do you plan to do right now, like in regards to going to help your community heal from generational trauma?
Yeah. So the reason that once I got into chiropractic school, like I started learning more about, you know, natural health and like chronic diseases. And specifically in the Black community, we just have, not only do we have so much emotional trauma, like I think there's been studies where they look at like how the DNA actually changed from slavery and like we have that trauma in our DNA. And I mean, I don't think you have to be a chiropractor to know that physical trauma or emotional trauma turns into physical pain, you know? How many times we talk about like stress causing ulcers? Like people understand that. And so if stress causes ulcers, then stress and these major life changes and seeing people die in the street, like stuff like that is gonna cause some type of physical trauma to the body. And so I think that really the more we just try to spread the message that you know your nervous system controls everything, we can really be like a catapultist in like changing the way that people think about what it means to be healthy. So like if you're not taking care of these generational and this stuff that has gone on in your past and you're not feeding yourself nutritious food, like that is going to just perpetuate what we've been seeing for the last hundreds of years, you know.
Hmm.
um, And so I know for me, like, although my family is super healthy, like my mom, dad, brother, and, you know, some of my uncles, but like as a whole, when I look at like my whole entire family as a whole, you know, we're literally dying from these diseases that are preventable. And so for me, like that lights me on fire because I know that it's because we don't have access to one, just the knowledge to know that like you don't have to go down this road of like just because your parents had diabetes and high blood pressure, like they just assume that they're going to get it. That's just the way that they've been living for years and years and years. And it's like having that knowledge that, oh, because of what I'm eating and like the lifestyle stuff that I'm doing, like that's what's causing, these chronic diseases. Like for me, that's like, if I can give you a solution, then that, I mean, that changes everything.
Mhm.
And so my hope for the Black community is that, I mean, I think we are, especially here in Atlanta, like there's so many natural health and people are getting into more like Eastern medicine and acupuncture and chiropractic. And so it's starting to change for sure. It's just getting like way deep into those communities. That's the hard part for sure.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, most definitely. It sounds like Atlanta is the hub right now for Black chiropractors. I've connected with so many right now on this podcast. Do you plan to practice in Atlanta? What are your plans? You just graduated like 2 days ago. Like,
Yeah.
what's coming up for you right now? In the
So
moment, what's your intention at least, and do you have a plan of what the next 6 months or 2 years looks like?
yeah, so I've grown up in Atlanta my whole life. I went to undergrad in West Virginia, so big change of pace, and then I went to chiropractic school in St. Louis, Missouri. So I'm actually moving to Dallas. I did my rotation there, my preceptorship in Dallas. And so they offered me a job. So my plan is to work there for at least like a year and a half, maybe 2 years, and then eventually open up my own practice. I'm going to specialize in pediatrics and prenatal. And I want to have like a functional medicine person because I think that's very important. And so, like, if someone can come to me for back pain, and that's if they think that I do, which is fine. But once again, the door, they're going to know that, but if I can get them in, and then not only can I talk to them about, the nervous system, but I can also give them access to a functional medicine person that can talk about all the difficult things that, like, I'm not so great at. I
Mhm.
know a lot of chiropractors do like supplements and stuff, and I think that's super important, but like, I rather give somebody who is already educated about it and I don't have to guess, and try to explain to you stuff. So, um, yeah, that's my plan. I'm gonna be in Atlanta for like 3 weeks, probably just like chilling, shadowing a couple people, taking a little break before it gets real.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. And can you just touch on what it looks like or feels like to shadow a chiropractor in practice? Like, what are the things you're observing? What are some of the questions that you have of them going into the experience that maybe you could shine a light for any prospective student or even current student to take with them when they go to actually observe? Because I want to get really detailed with that with students. I think it's important to give structure.
Yeah, for sure. So if when you're shadowing a chiropractor, there's a lot of things that you should look at, but I think you should always go in with an open mind because even if it's not exactly what you want to do, there's always something that you can learn from everyone. So some of the things that I look at when I first was like starting school is how do they communicate with the patient? Like how are they communicating what they're doing? And that looks different at every office that you go to, but you'll find something that resonates with you. So how are they communicating with their patients? How is the flow of patients? Like, are they being seen for 5 minutes? Are they being seen for 10 minutes? What's the flow of the office? Is it open? Do people go into separate rooms? And then when you're seeing all those things, I would just say like feel what resonates, with you and like, oh, I like this. Cause you don't have to have your practice look like anyone specifically. Like there's so much that chiropractic can look like. And so that can be different for you. Another thing I would say to look at, and this is probably like as you're further along in school, but do they take insurance? How do they communicate insurance? How do they do their payment plans? How, if they don't take insurance, how are they communicating to the patient on why, oh, even though we don't take insurance, like this is how it's going to benefit you. What techniques do they use? Do you like the techniques that they use? Do they mix techniques together? One thing that I'm so interested in is like, I don't identify with one technique specifically. And so I love to see how people incorporate like SOT and activator and like just these different techniques, how they blend them together and how you can make that work for yourself. So
Mhm.
those are really the main things that I look at is like the flow of the office. How do their patients look? Are their patients happy when they come in? Like, is the vibe of the place just like super low? Like, is the energy vibration low? Is the energy vibration high? And if it is, what makes it like that? Is it because of their personality? Is it because of the music they're playing? Is it the decor? Like, is it the, what is the culture of the office? I think the culture of the office is a big one for sure. I
Mm-hmm.
think that those are like the main things that you should look at. And once again, like, you can learn from anyone. So don't limit yourself. Like, don't say, oh, I don't want high volume, so I'm not gonna go shadow them, because you'll get in that office and it might be something way different than what you thought it was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I'll add a couple of little things, looking at their forms, their paperwork.
Mm,
That's
yeah.
always really telling of like the type of culture that they're trying to develop and establish, the types of questions on their forms. Also, their financial systems.
Mm-hmm.
How do they really reach the people financially? You mentioned insurance, but most of the places I imagine you're going to visit are mostly cash and then maybe a little bit of insurance.
Yeah.
Um,
Marketing too. Like, if you can stay there long enough to like figure out what is their marketing, because everyone once again looks different. Like, are they more online? Do they actually send people out and do like screenings? Is it a lot of, there's some practices that are strictly referral based, and like that's crazy, but like how do they, figure out how did they do that if that's something that you're interested in? Now if you're killing social media, how can you turn your Instagram into patient flow? So there's just so much. And I feel like the deeper you get into school, you're like, oh, I need to go and like see how people do this. But when you first start off school, I would just say just expose yourself to everything.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah,
That's great advice. Thank you for going deep on that. I appreciate it.
yeah, for
And
sure.
if you could touch on some of the techniques that you did really go deeper with when you were in school, and what led you to wanting to specialize in pregnancy and pediatrics, if you could really like touch on that moment that you said, hey, this is what I really want to focus on, and what are some of the detailed trainings that are out there that you've either participated in or that you plan to participate in to grow your skills in that specific demographic.
Yeah. So I feel like in school, the main things that really impacted me was taking having the ability to take acupuncture was really cool, that Logan offers, because a lot of schools don't offer that. So it gave me enough hours to be able to, if I want to take the boards, I can. SOT was kind of cool. But I'm gonna be 100% honest. Most of the adjusting that you learn is going to be stuff that's done outside of school, and that's just the truth of it. That's why I feel like I'm not going to say it doesn't matter what school that you go to. I think what matters the most is what you do outside in your free time and what groups are you getting connected with. So like a lot of the way that I adjust now, I learned from Dr. Bynum, Hand Alchemy, OTZ. um, if you go to things like, I don't know, motion palpation, if that's your thing, go to that. If um,
Can you touch on Dr. Bynum's training? Like what is unique about it, or how would you describe it to a fellow student who, just to build context in their eyes into like what the offering is?
Yeah, so actually I got adjusted by someone who adjusts in Dr. Bynum's style, and I was like, wait, I've never been adjusted like that. Like, what is that? And why have I never learned anything about that at Logan? Or like what is that? And I ended up going to the OTZ seminar, which is it's 3 adjustments, but it's mainly an occiput, and it's a crazy occiput adjustment. And so getting more hooked up with those students. I haven't actually been to a hand alchemy seminar yet, just because it hasn't aligned with my schedule. But since being in Dallas, just like being aligned with those clubs and like learning more of the philosophy of the adjustment, and it's a high speed, low amplitude adjustment. Um, and it honestly changed my life. Like that's the way that I mainly adjust now. And I mean, I guess like taking diversified in school gave me like a good foundation, but not really, because I had to unlearn everything that I learned in school to go out and like kind of change like everything that I was doing about my adjusting.
Can you touch
um
specifically on what you had to unlearn? Like what was it about how you touched people or how your hand worked on thing? Like how did you change things or unlearn things?
yeah, so in school, like, you don't really get to thrust. And that's like one of the most important things about the adjustment, and why so many people struggle is because they're not, you have to practice the thrust. And so like the way that they have you set up, it's just like a lot of tension, it's a lot of torque on the spine. um, you don't really learn how to do the actual adjustment. And so I kind of learned everything outside, and I still picked up some bad habits, you know, a lot of like rotation, a lot of trying to basically now I just adjust from more of a place of ease. And so I'm not trying to get everything to end range and then like hold it. And then, so it's more of just, it's not as, what's the word? Forced, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so, like the neck, you can, anyone can go in and just like make some noise, but like making sure that you're being specific and you're adjusting the segment that you want to adjust, and you know how to adjust it like three different ways. I feel like in school they kind of just teach you how to make noise more so, or maybe that's just what we pick up because we're not actually doing the thrust. So then when we go and practice, like we're like, I don't know, I guess this is how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
And then from a pregnancy standpoint, I would say, so I took the pregnancy or prenatal and pediatric elective from Logan. That was good. That's how I learned how to do Webster. And Webster is a prenatal adjustment, basically using the round ligament. There's some other things that are in there, but I do want to get the actual like ICPA Webster certification. So that's my plan after school, is to go ahead and like actually get the official certification. I've been doing a lot with the pediatric experience, Dr. Tony Ebel. That's been really good. I just kind of just started it, so I'm not like all the way invested. Well, I'm invested, but I'm not like super far through it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's been really good, just like talking about how to run a pediatric clinic and how to make sure that your clinic doesn't turn into like an adult pain center clinic.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like I'm sticking with them. Like that's definitely the way that I'm gonna go for sure, is the
Mhm.
pediatric.
How does he sort of describe his program, and what does the program entail? Like, what's the commitment? How long does it take to go through it? I know you said you haven't gone all the way through it, but like, what
Yeah,
is the offering there?
it's all online, which is super dope to me. And so I think as a student I got my first month free, and then it turned into $95 a month, and I think it goes up once you're a doc. But basically it's broken up into sections. So like start off with the core value, and it's all videos and it's all broken down, and they send you like a packet that has like basically the PowerPoints printed out and you can take notes. But it's really easy to follow on the website. So like one section will be like all the core values. One section will be how do you do your marketing. One section is all about the science behind an adjustment and like why they're seeing so many miracles. You know, she's broken down into sections, day one, day two, and they're taking you like, I mean, they have a practice. They have a practice out in up in Michigan, one of those states, I don't know. But you know, they actually take you through like everything that they do in their office and why they've become so successful, and they just break everything down. And so even if you never take Webster, if you never take a business, well, I don't want to say it's necessarily business, but even if you've never like taken anything like that, you can get everything you need out of their training. And then you can add, so if you feel like, oh, I didn't get like a big business part out of his training, then you can like, you know, add supplemental stuff from someone else that you align with. But I mean, honestly, it's a really good program if you are interested in having like a pediatric and prenatal clinic, for sure. I would 100% recommend going
Mm-hmm.
with them.
What would you say or recommend to the high school or college version of yourself, like where to start or where to begin? Obviously, we talked about like going to offices and getting that real world experience and really observing chiropractors, seeing how they communicate, seeing what the culture's like, seeing what it's like to be a chiropractor. But in regards to personal study, could they start with something like what you just described, the pediatric experience, or is there anything that you felt like was foundational or fundamental that you would tell, you know, the version of yourself that knew you were about to go to chiropractic school to
Mm.
prepare for when you're about to get there?
Yeah, so if it was me and I was talking to myself, I would say I should have shadowed way more people before I started school. I think if I would have done that, I wouldn't have to like wait all throughout school to figure out what I wanted to do. And I kind of always knew that I wanted to do pediatric prenatal, but I kind of went back and forth between like philosophy or is evidence based. And I hate to get into that, like it's so annoying, but like it's real. Like there really are two sides of chiropractic. And so like I kind of went back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I think that if I would have shadowed more people and kind of understood more about like what philosophy is, it would have saved me like so much time, like in school, like going back and forth. Definitely would have shadowed and just like honestly, like following more people on social media, like more chiropractors who were like aligned with what I wanted to do. And um, I don't know if I would have necessarily done the pediatric experience because that can kind of be like overwhelming for someone who's not in chiropractic. I'm
Mhm.
trying to think of something that would be like a good starter. Um,
You probably can't think about it because it doesn't currently exist, but
yeah,
that's what we're creating with this
okay,
pre-Chiro project. And that
yeah, like
is
it,
really funny just to be like really thinking on it. But the reason why I'm doing this project is because there is no pre-Chiro structure that helps
uh,
usher somebody into school, helps them recognize this is an academic program primarily. Like you have to get through the classes, you have to pass your boards,
right,
but there's also a whole nother curriculum that you have to wrap your head around of becoming a better chiropractic scientist, a thinker, an artist, a teacher, and an entrepreneur. So I think that having that context initially helps people really organize their studies so that they can make the most efficient time with their schedule. You know, there's time management's huge, right? So
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
That's like it really doesn't exist because if you try to do something like that, like if you were to go to the pediatric experience before being in chiropractic school, it would just be overwhelming. And that's like I would say that for all the different, entities that there are, like that can be super overwhelming just like diving into something that, science, the art, the philosophy, the business, like that's just too much. So it needs to
Mhm.
be something like a little watered down maybe, but yeah, that would be super dope.
Hmm. You
Yeah.
know, it's just a different question, right? Nobody's ever asking, like, how can we serve this audience? How can we create something for this population? Everybody's so focused on the students and the docs. Like, we have to recognize that if we can increase the landing strip, or not the landing strip, but yeah, like the takeoff,
Yeah.
like if we can open the runway up to be a little bit longer, that we can have students graduating with more time to develop their skills. Because like you said,
Yeah.
if you could change anything, it's that you would have known going into school exactly how you wanted to practice, so you could have spent all that extra time
Yeah.
focusing on the skills that were meaningful to you. You know, not to say that any of it was wasted, but there was probably a lot of wasted time.
It
Like,
was a learning curve for sure. And just like going back and forth, it would have just been so much easier if I just would have known, like, because I'm a very analytical person. And so, like, everything that we learned in school, if I couldn't break the philosophy down, like, in here, then I just be like, all right, I just can't do this right now. But if there was a way, like, everything that I learned, in the last 8 months, if I could learn that way earlier on, it definitely would have saved some time and headache and like strife within myself. Sure.
hmm hmm what do you think about us needing more diversity in the student body? I know that it already is pretty diverse, but what does diversity mean for our communities, and why does chiropractic specifically really need to focus on increasing diversity to really reach those deeper parts of the community and neighborhoods that are not getting access?
Yeah, that actually, when you said something about like focusing on the students before they come into chiropractic school, like that made me think of the ABCA because that's one of our mission statements is like fostering getting more Black students into chiropractic school, and then once they get there, like actually supporting them while they're there. And I mean, just like every other profession, especially healthcare profession, it's usually founded on being a white male, and so medical, we're starting to see like more diversity, even chiropractic, more diversity, but there's always a need for more because, you talk about however many percentage of people are under chiropractic care. You go to the Black community and it's going to be a less percentage of that, usually. Um, and so I mean, it's super important, but not only just to get Black people into or Black students into chiropractic school, but teaching our white classmates like how to interact with Black. If I mean, you're gonna have Black patients, so like if you don't know how to interact with them, then like that's a big issue as well, for sure.
Mm,
So just from a standpoint of like everyone needs to focus on how they can treat black people, black patients, whatever, and make them feel comfortable and make them want to, choose chiropractic care. But we definitely, I mean, chiropractic needs, it's getting better. I mean, I can probably say just from the last, I mean, I've been in school for 3.5 years, so I think that it's definitely increased just from then. And we're doing a lot with SAPCA and the ABCA. So I think that, I mean, we're definitely on the right track. But like I said, the more visibility that we have, the more that we graduate Black doctors, and just females in general, because females is also, you want to talk about diversity, like this is a male dominated profession. And so just getting more visibility that allows people to see themselves. Oh, I can do that. Okay, she did that. I can do that. He did that. I can do that. And that's how you really increase your diversity. But then also focusing on like when you get the students there, if you get the black students in and then you don't have any means to support them while they're there, like you're not creating a sustainable uh, like model basically.
Hmm.
So
Do
that's
you know
important.
anything that ABCA or SAPCA is doing to create a more sustainable model for Black students?
Um, Honestly, I feel like Logan is doing a good job. I think they're doing a better job than the other schools. We have a diversity and inclusion coordinator. We have what's his title? Compliance officer. We just have a lot of things that are in place. Like we have a place that we can go to when we say like, okay, this is the issue that we're having. In our classes, we're not learning this, or we don't have any black professors. This needs to change. So we have a place that we can go to voice our opinions and say like, this is what would make it easier as a black student, or this is what would make us more successful is if we had these things in place. So I think that the schools, they really need to get, like, if they don't have that mindset, then nothing's going to change. But I think that Logan is like doing a great job of paving the way for how to create like a safe space or a more inclusive space in the
Mhm.
chiropractic profession or school.
Becoming a chiropractor often expands your consciousness as to like the reach that you have, just with that one person on your table. Can you speak to any big ideas you've been able to develop, either related to chiropractic practice or something more community oriented that you would like to take part in, or that you would like to create in the future, to change the world in a maybe a bigger way than just in your office? Not saying that that's not changing the world, but do you
Yeah.
have, usually chiropractic graduates, new graduates are on fire for like what's possible, um, just because you've spent time really thinking about the issues that is going on in society. Do you have anything that comes up when I ask you that?
Um, I always have a ton of ideas. Honestly, I think a lot about like how to get students in the door, like, so even if it's not associate, just like shadowing, and what can that reach do? Just from getting students in the door. And then also like when you talk about young people and having patients who are younger, like how can I make it so that they want to be a chiropractor? What is it about when you go to shadow someone, like what is that thing that's like, oh, I want to be a chiropractor. So I think honestly for me, getting young people under chiropractic care, I think just doing that changes humanity right there, because you don't have to try to fix, that broken adult. You're getting to them young, and that's how you spread, the message of chiropractic and health and bettering humanity. So I think people who are under chiropractic care are just usually better people. They're just happier. They're handling their stress better. They're better parents. They're able to be better parents. And so I think that from right there, like that's where you start to have the spread. And then of course I have a ton of ideas about like community events that I want to put on, and like
Mhm.
having our patients come in and like actually teaching them, like I'm not here to sell you on anything. I'm here to like actually educate you. And by spreading knowledge, knowledge is power. And so I think that empowering my whoever comes into my practice, like making sure that they're empowered and equipped to spread the message of health, that changes the world right there. I have a ton of other different ideas. I want to do like a millennial brunch, where I get together a bunch of like millennial entrepreneurs, whether it's in chiropractic, whatever, and bringing in people in the community, like young people who are like, okay, I have this idea, I want to do this. How do I do it? Okay, come to our millennial brunch. We're gonna have a panelist of like 7 millennials who have done it, and this is how we're gonna equip and empower you to be able to take that vision off. And so I just think the more visibility that we have, um, it just that's how you start to change the world right there.
Hmm. What would it mean for you to have a team of pre-Cairo students supporting some of your projects so that you could delegate and say, hey, you have a little extra time right now. I want to create this opportunity for you to really step into your power and reach out in the way that, based on some of the ideas you just talked about. Do you think that having a bigger team in a sense by involving pre-Cairo students could make a big difference?
Yes, for sure, because that not only does that help me, but that helps them to just like we were talking about before, like just start to kind of be more involved before you get into school. Like that's huge. And that's why I always think like the best students are people like, oh yeah, I was a CA for 2 years before I started chiropractic school. It's like not only do they have knowledge about what chiropractic is, but they kind of already have an idea of what they want to do afterwards. Like I went to school with this one guy, and he was a CA, but he like ran all their he was like basically in the background, like did all that stuff. I'm like, dang man, when he gets out, like he's gonna kill it because he knows how every like he knows the business structure, he knows how to be a good chiropractor. Like he's got, he's gonna be able to teach someone how to be a great CA or a great office manager, whatever it is, like because he already has that knowledge. And so I think that the best people who usually end up, doing well, like right after school, like opening up right after school, they normally have some type of, oh yeah, I was an office manager for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
So to being like having students in my office, like to help me or whatever it was, that would be super helpful, super dope. And then we're giving them an opportunity to, explore a little bit with chiropractic and what's possible and what they can do with it, for
Mm-hmm.
sure.
It's super dope hearing you just answer all my questions real eloquently, but just, effortlessly because it really does flow through you when you're clear. Like you just getting back from Haiti, just having served all the people you served. It's a privilege for me to be able to just tap in with you right now. Like you
Yeah.
just got back, right? And you're so
Yeah.
fresh.
Tired. But
It's
like I said
good.
before, like, you leave and you're empty on the sense of like you're tired, your body hurts, but like you're so full on everything else, full on love, fire. Like, so that's why I
Hmm.
was like, of course, I'm tired though.
Are you going to take some time to rest before starting into practice, or are you going right in? When do you start?
Yeah, so I leave Georgia and drive to Texas on May 14th. So I have a couple weeks. I have to go up to Ohio. My godchildren are getting baptized. So I have a couple things to do, but for the most part, just gonna be chilling, like getting all my stuff together. There's a couple doctors that I want to shadow out here, just spend a couple days with. So just kind of
Mhm.
hanging out. Yeah.
Awesome. Any questions come up for you in this conversation that you leave this conversation with questions? I'm just always curious if it's like, you know, sometimes we get done with these conversations and we're like, "Ooh, it would have been fun to explore this question," or,
Yeah.
what would
I'm,
be a
I'm
question? Hmm?
I'm interested in like what is the mission statement, or like what's the mission of pre-Cairo like moving forward?
Just to represent chiropractic in high schools and colleges, to put it in a position where people can discover it, and to also try and create structure that if they are interested in studying chiropractic, that we have introductory materials that we give them enough that they can basically immerse themselves in all the things that we just talked about over the course of 2 to 4 years. And I think that the long-term vision is to create like an accredited program that is acknowledged and adopted by as like a vocational program, maybe as an alternative to high school training, or maybe
Mhm.
as a way to get your associate's degree or to get your bachelor's degree, like with a concentration on pre-chiro, knowing you want to go become a chiropractor. There's so much you could do to prepare, to study, to learn about, without doing the actual adjustments, right? So
Yeah, for
I
sure.
think just lowering the access point so that most anybody could go study chiropractic if they wanted to, and then really decide if they want to become a chiropractor. I think that's the goal.
Yeah, that's dope. That's super dope. Because that's necessary. Like we do pre-physical therapy, pre-med, all that stuff. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's definitely
And just to brand it differently than physical therapy or pre-med, we have an opportunity because pre-chiro really hasn't been developed, it hasn't been established. We have the opportunity to really keep it um, diverse in a sense of like perspectives, but also to represent it um, to people and not have them not be able to point and say, "Oh, this is what I thought pre-chiro was," because there
mm,
is no reference point.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's dope. That's
So
gonna
I
be
invite you. You've already been a leader in campus and you're going to continue to be involved, it sounds like, with either the ABCA or in
yeah,
other associations. So, when I talk to
it's
Dr. Michaela
part of it.
Edwards, she's down to just
Yeah,
go in that direction. And somebody like you could work with her or with me or with whoever and develop your own thing. Like, I don't own pre-Cairo. I just want to raise awareness that it exists and
right.
that I want to kind of catalyze others to get involved in developing pre-Cairo related projects and materials, because I think that we have to work with the guidance counselors. We have to look at the celebrities that we have connections to and say, hey,
Mm,
they could be a pre-Cairo advocate.
yeah,
It's really just replacing chiropractic with pre-Cairo, and it's like, what's possible, you know?
yeah. Look, I'm down. Yeah. So I've had positions in SAPCA and ABCA, so I'm always down for just the expansion of chiropractic and giving people you know, a different path than what they were expecting or what they thought they were going to do. Yeah.
Yeah, because you're gonna see it years into practice, you're still gonna be glowing, you're still gonna be shining. Like, I'm 9 years in now, and it's like amazing that I'm about to go take care of people all day today, and I'm excited about it. It's not like I have to go sit in front of a
Like job.
computer.
Yeah.
uh you
It's
know
a, it is. It's a great profession, and I think that especially now, like I feel like I'm sure when you graduated, you were like, "Dang, I feel like I got in at a good time." But I really feel like this is just like a great time to be a chiropractor, especially with everything that's going on right now. Like people are ready more, in my opinion, like more now than ever, like ready for just something new. So I got some things cooking, and I'm ready to serve for sure.
that's dope. That's
Yeah.
dope. Well, thank you so much for joining me in conversation. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Let me know if there's anything I could do to support you. Is there, just because you're connecting with me as a chiropractor right now, is there anything that you would like to ask me just to get some deeper insights, like just anything that you're going to be looking at when you go to job shadow, or not job shadow, but to go shadow these other chiropractic offices? Like, what are some of the burning questions you have right now?
Um, so I feel like I have a good foundation, but right now I'm just going when I go to shadow these places now, I'm going to see like how they run business because I feel like I have a good foundation with like how I want the office flow to be, how the communication is going to be in my office, but really just like how can I make my business more efficient because I don't want to do it the way that people have done it in the past. Like I want everything to be efficient. It's 2021. There's no reason that the way we should be doing things should take hours and hours and hours. Like I'm trying to kind of forge a new fire so that when people come in to visit me or like students come to visit me, they're like, "Oh man, like this is it doesn't have to be a drag to do, paperwork and all that stuff." So I'm trying to figure out, I've seen some really efficient stuff, but I feel like it can be even better. So I'm trying to
Mm-hmm.
make it as modern and efficient as possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
What's your
good luck.
experience? And you said good
Huh?
luck.
Nah, it's good. It'll be exactly what you intended to be. I think that's the truth. It's really it's going to be interesting because the systems that you step into in this office, whether you realize it or not, are going to be conditioning you to practice a certain way. And
Yeah.
how can you maintain that autonomy within the context of an associateship? Is a good question to ask yourself. Is like, how can I give myself like enough freedom to explore other things while I still, give this my all and really try and be committed to the processes that they already established. Because
Yeah,
you're
I
going
definitely
into an
felt
office,
that.
it's not like you're starting your own thing, right?
Right. I've definitely felt that a little bit, and it's like some things I'm like, like I wouldn't do it like this, but I'm humble enough to like I'm gonna keep, obviously I'm not trying to change anything that they do. So, they ask for my opinion, I give them, but I just know that like probably my setup's gonna be way different. But I think it is good to see how people do things because then you can see what you do want to do and what you don't want to do. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's definitely I'm in that right now, like that maintaining your autonomy but still fitting well and like being copacetic where you're at. So
Okay.
for sure,
Yeah. No, it's exciting times.
it
Exciting
is.
times for you.
Life is changing, man.
Yes, it is. All right, we're gonna sign off at that. I think that I don't really have anything that I could share with you that you haven't already seen or experienced. I'm sure that, we could go down a couple of rabbit holes. Like one thing that I invite you to explore is on the Pre-Cairo Instagram page, like at the very bottom. One of the initial videos I did, it was with like a triangle on a notebook.
What?
And it's an 8-minute video of me breaking down some information that I wish would have been shared with me a lot
Okay.
earlier on in my path in regards to financial literacy and managing how I receive money as a chiropractor because it's information that I studied last year. So I was already like 7, 8 years in. I didn't really start my retirement plan until like last year or the year before that. And, I'm already 35. So it's like, do it as soon as possible so
Right.
that you can start moving in the direction where you have money available if you want to go start your own practice or buy a house or whatever. Start really learning how to build.
Yeah. Where are you located?
I'm in Oakland, California, the Bay
Oh,
Area.
okay. Okay. Dang, that's wait. So are you gonna be at the ABCA conference?
I'm definitely planning to be there. Yeah, I want to. Are you gonna be there?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, you coming out for that? Okay.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah. So I don't hold any titles anymore in ABCA or SAPCA, but I'm still, pretty involved from I stay back a little bit now. But yeah, I'm definitely gonna be out there. So
All right.
it'll be dope to connect for sure.
Yeah, no, most definitely. My office is called The Shift. It's in Oakland, The Shift Chiropractic. Saturday, I imagine the conference is happening mainly on Saturday, and Saturday is one of my busiest days of the week. I only work 2.5 days a week.
Okay.
So my Saturday morning is kind of crazy always, but I'll probably come through there afterwards.
Yeah. Or even like it'll start on I think this one starts on Thursday or Friday, so
Okay, great.
there'll be stuff going on. Like it might not be so much like structured conference, but there'll definitely be times to like connect and stuff and network. So
Yeah, and I mean, I put it out there too. I would love to have like a breakout session and just get people's feedback and have constructive dialogue around this project. It's something that is, I think, very relevant to ABCA. I've had, conversations on the back end about trying to make this more part of the fabric of,
yeah,
how do we really attract more diversity into the profession? And a project like this is, I think, the best vehicle out there. So.
yeah, yeah. It's gonna be
We'll
California's
see.
gonna be fun.
Hmm?
California's gonna be a good opportunity for like all that. So yeah,
Yeah.
have you talked to Dr. Edwards about like all that stuff?
I haven't proposed a breakout session, but that's what I've always thought of having. I imagined that the truth is I had a conversation with her like 2 months ago, and she said, "Hey, give me what you want to be shared on the private portal
Mm-hmm.
for members,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll put it up there. We'll start to like build an awareness that we have a pre-Cairo section of the ABCA portal. And so I think if I can deliver on that before this conference happens, it'll go a long way of really establishing it at the conference. I
Yeah.
think we have 2 months. I think the conference is in June 3rd or 6th or something. When is it? June?
It's June. Oh, it's having it up here. Yeah, it's like around that time. Third through the. Why is it not up here?
Yeah, it's 3rd through the 5th, 3rd through the 6th.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I'm
whatever that Thursday is. Thursday to
Yeah,
Sunday.
I'm hopeful. Maybe we could even work together in the next week or two. I don't want to add anything to your plate, but it wouldn't be a lot of time just for you to kind of help me understand what the ABCA would appreciate having for their members
Yeah,
to
just
promote um, to promote things. I know that you have probably a lot of nice photos from Haiti at this point.
Oh yeah.
Um, and really, like, imagery is something that I think is crucial to, uh, when you're trying to show college students or high school students what this profession's about. If they could see one of those pictures of you adjusting a baby in Haiti, or
Yeah.
you working with a pregnant mom in Haiti, I
Yeah, I
think
have
that
it
that
too.
would,
We
like,
can
be
definitely,
pretty, yeah, it
yeah,
would be
link up for sure. Just let me
powerful.
know whatever you need.
All right, cool. We'll keep it talking, and I'm gonna cut this off now just because we're flowing for an hour now. It didn't seem like it was that long, but I appreciate your energy, and I think that this is super valuable for any prospective student out there. Just to, I mean, you touched on so much that they can really sit with, and
Yeah.
maybe watch a couple of times, because I think that there's so much depth to these interviews, to these conversations I have, because it's like there's just so much to chiropractic and becoming a chiropractor. You know what I
There's so
mean?
many
It's like
layers. So like
so many
I know when
layers.
I watch something, like I watched Maurice's, and when I watched it first, like the first time, and then like it's like a book. You read it again, and like you pick up more things that you can even like explore further. So
Yeah.
yeah, I
I'm
know I
glad you
can kind
watched
of,
his, because I think it went for about an hour, right?
yeah, his was long. His was long. But
Uh,
he's actually who adjusted me. I didn't want to say that on the thing, but he adjusted me, and I was like, dang, what is that? Like, where did you learn that? And so that's why I feel like Parker has a lot of opportunity like outside of school, which is what Logan is missing a little bit.
mhm,
But like ever since that I've like connected with the Parker students, like that's when my adjusting like really took off, because they have like that tight knit. They have Dr. Bynum, they have OTZ, like all that stuff is right there, and they're so involved with it. Um, and that's what makes them like such good adjusters, that they're doing all that stuff outside, which is
mhm,
what
mhm.
Logan has like MPI, but they don't have like Adjust Club. They don't have those docs like that. They don't have that in Logan. So
But
Parker,
it's available through the internet, right? I mean, you can tap in, I think, to their Instagram page and watch setups and demonstrations,
yeah,
and
I started doing, well, they started doing that with COVID, because it used to be in person, and then they started doing it online. And so I was watching those too, but and I was like sending them to Logan students, like people who were about to graduate, like I don't know how to adjust, like I don't feel confident, like can you help me? I'd be like, look, just watch these videos, because you need to retrain like everything that you learned at Logan. Like, just if you want to adjust the way that I adjust, just kick all that out the door.
yeah, yeah.
That's
When I
why,
started the, go ahead, sorry.
no, I was just gonna say you just have to learn. Like, there's just two styles. Well, there's a lot of ways to adjust, but Logan's a lot more mechanistic and a lot more like sports, pain. Whereas like the stuff that I learned like through the Parker students was a lot more philosophy, art, like the artistry of chiropractic, delivering the adjustment, the intention, all that stuff that they don't talk
Hmm.
about at Logan. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, I saw Dr. Bynum's video when I was doing some research for this project, and I was exploring Instagram, and I saw his video, and I contacted him, and I was like, hey man, like, I adjust very similar to you. Like, I don't know who
Really?
you are, but I like how you're adjusting. Like, I like the examples that you're demonstrating on Instagram, and I would love to connect with you, because his style of adjusting and my style of adjusting is actually very similar when I looked at it, and I
Really?
never heard of him before. So he
Who'd
came
you
on
learn
this
through?
podcast and he shared for like an hour or two.
How did you learn? Like, who taught you how to adjust like that?
So I was fortunate enough to be in chiropractic school at a time where there was a lot of really just amazing, amazing teachers. I'm sure you've heard of like MLS seminars.
Mm-hmm.
Um, MLS was something I started in my second. So I was a massage therapist before school, and then I went to MLS in my second quarter, and then I went every single time it came through. And then we had our training groups every single week in between MLS, and I eventually became, like, one of the quote unquote facilitators of that. And I think just having that experience of being able to deliver like a life changing adjustment to a new student, I can't tell
Mm-hmm.
you how many new students I'll be like, hey, just come on over here. Let me just kind of adjust you and check you and show you a different style, show you a different
Yeah.
experience. And so I think now that you have that skill set, it's almost like really important for you to go back to Logan and to introduce as many young early students as you can. I'm sure you already were, like you said, you were talking to them about. Um,
Yeah, it was only like a few, but I am like when we go to California, like I'm excited because they haven't. I mean, the cool thing about Logan is that you have 8 months where you're gone, whereas other schools just get like 3 or 4. So I haven't seen them in a long time. So I think when they see me adjust, I was a good adjuster before. It's just like way different now. So I think when they see me adjust, they're gonna be like, "Where did you learn that?" Because it's way different than anything that we learn, at school or
no
even like
doubt.
outside of school. I did a lot of outside stuff. Like through SAPCO, we would go on Tuesday nights. We would go to like a doctor in the area. We would like practice our adjusting, and even like that helped me a lot. Like I'm not no, I'm not gonna say that I didn't, but that did help me a lot. It was just teaching me one way where the way that I do it now like aligns more with me. And so they have like that outside stuff, but they don't have like this artistry and flow of like adjusting
And
out
being a
there.
basketball player, I was a college soccer player, I was a college tennis player. Like, we're used to being very dynamic with our bodies in
Mhm.
motion, and we appreciate that aspect of our sports where we're able to put a little finesse on the power move, or we're able to
Yeah.
use our speed in a way that allows us to redirect our body. And I think that the more momentum we use in our adjusting, the more we're able to appreciate the adjustment. And so, using momentum, I think, is what you're describing when you describe like how you adjust a little differently. It's like you're not seeing the body static. You're like
Mhm.
in motion, and you're in motion, the body's in motion, and it's very
Yeah.
dynamic.
And you're
So,
waiting for that moment. And I think like the way I was learning to adjust before was like it was so static, and it's like it's hard to as a female because we're so like fluid, it's hard to like stay in a position like that and then try to generate force. Like that's just not how. And so when I see, I had guys trying to teach me, okay, do it like this. I'm like, this just does not feel right. And so learning, Maurice did a good job of like, even though, he understands like masculine, feminine. So he kind of taught me in a way that was more fluid. And I can generate more force and more power when I'm looser and not like, so stiff. And so I'm excited to teach women specifically how to adjust because I feel like we just kind of like I know so many girls who are like, oh, I just don't do side posture because it just doesn't, you know, they can't do anything with it because they've been learning from guys who don't understand like, our body type or whatever. So I
I gotta go.
definitely, oh, I understand.
I appreciate you though.
All
Have
right.
a great day,
All
okay?
right. You too.
Take care. Bye.